Why? That has nothing to do with it. It's this. Oh, you just have to go that far. What is that? You go far. Oh, it doesn't work either. Nothing to do with that. Hold on. Ah, here we go.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
It's already on?
Goodbye. Absolutely.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good evening. Tonight we're going to be continuing where we left off 2 weeks ago in the halachas in chapter 4 in Shulchan Aruch, Siman Daled. We're still in the chapter here in our book, Awaken Like a Jew, chapter 3, restrictions before washing. We went through a list of 6 restrictions, 3 Talmudic and 3 Zoharic. Everybody remember what they are? Who belongs to who? Right? The Talmud says, prior to washing hands, we have this terrible impurity on the hands, so therefore you cannot touch your orifices, all the orifices of the body. You can't scratch over here. That's not an orifice. Are you okay? Okay. You cannot touch food or drink. If you do, we discussed in length 2 weeks ago what to do with food or drink, to throw it out or wash it 3 times. We discussed that issue. And you may not touch the washing line. So those we discussed in detail. And now we're up to those Zoharic restrictions, which were not to say Hashem's name, not to learn Torah, not to touch clothing, and not to walk 4 cubits. So let's begin with touching. I think we're going to begin with. Okay, we'll begin with. We'll do all 3, and then we'll do different questions and answers on touching clothing. One is to be stringent like the Zohar and avoid touching clothing prior to washing. Thus, we may not even put on his socks prior to washing. That is the wording in the Ben Ish Chai. Basically, you can't get dressed before you wash, because according to the Zohar, that transmits the klipa to the clothing, and then you put on klipa clothing.
What if the material?
Huh?
What if the material of the clothes?
It makes no difference. Polyester, cotton,
No, it could
wool.
be leather, whatever. I mean, leather is not the same as cotton or
it doesn't
synthetic.
say. For me to make such a differentiation, I would need a source, and I'm not aware of any source differentiating the material of clothing. And just for you to know, most clothing today, it's almost all garbage. It's almost all the same material, unless you get something super expensive. But everything.
What about the pajamas or the clothing you already have on? What about the clothing you already have on?
Right. So that's a great point. Can you touch it while it's on you? So it doesn't discuss it. It doesn't discuss it at all. But the logic says that the fact that it doesn't mention it must mean that it's mutter, or it refers to people who slept without pajamas. It used to be people used to sleep without. There were no pajamas. I guess they didn't sell it. People just took off their clothes and slept under the blanket without anything on them. So when it says you can't touch clothing, there were no clothing on your body, and you can't take clothing and get dressed. But if you're already wearing clothing on the body, it doesn't discuss it. Bottom line is like this: you should try to avoid it as much as possible.
It's important.
But sometimes it's not possible to avoid. So when it's not possible to avoid, it's not possible to avoid. Even the Zohar will give you a way out.
It says that we're not supposed to sleep with our clothes under clothes, whatever.
That's correct. Yes.
So this is probably the reason, because when you sleep with it, you're going to touch it and it's going to be coming.
Oh no, that's a different reason. That's a different source, but it's true. It is likewise recorded not to sleep with clothing under your pillow.
Well, probably have to do that.
Yeah, and we are careful about that. Okay, so again, according to the Talmud, meaning the Shulchan Aruch, codifiers, it's not required. According to the Zohar, it is required, and we are machmir like the Zohar not to touch clothing. Some related questions. Can one touch things other than clothing, such as pick up your glasses, your alarm clock? I believe someone asked me this 2 weeks ago and I already answered, but so we're going to get up to it. Now we're up to it. The answer is absolutely it's mutter. The restriction is only on clothing. Clothing doesn't mean an alarm clock, and clothing doesn't mean a phone. If you ordered a pair of clothing and they sent you sunglasses, okay, so it's very simple. Why do I emphasize this? Because often I have seen that people confuse the two. Like, for example, why do I have to suffer and have a guy's alarm clock go off as a roommate, and him not shutting it off because he doesn't want to wash hands yet, thinking that it's usher to shut off an alarm clock before you wash hands? Why do I have to suffer due to his ignorance?
I might not be able to find the place to wash if I don't have my glasses on first.
That's another point. But even if you could find a place to wash, you're allowed to wear glasses.
Yeah, I understand.
Glasses are not considered clothing. It is not a problem. Also, alarm clock, all these, anything that's not actual clothing is not a problem at all. Regarding your yarmulke, let's say often your yarmulke falls off at night. Can you put it back on? The answer is yes, you may. Okay, this is written explicitly in the Seder Hayayim, who was a student of the Arizal, Rabbi Makir, who lives here in Tzfas, in the old cemetery. And he writes, after wearing one's undershirt and covering oneself properly prior to his clothing, he is to wash his hands. So here we see that he mentions putting on a yarmulke before washing. Bottom line, since it's for the sake of the mitzvah, it's for the sake of modesty, have a yarmulke on your head, for the reasons we discussed in previous lessons, it is mutter. Likewise, if your negavasser is far from you and a person is not properly dressed, he's allowed to dress himself for the sake of not having his body revealed in the bedroom. We discussed this in the previous classes, the Isser, or the mitzvah, the Isser of having a revealed body inside the room that's not under your cover. So if a person's not sneezed, then he's allowed to cover himself first, even though he didn't wash, and then go to the negavasser. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next Zoharic restriction is regarding walking 4 amos. So one is to be stringent like the Zohar and avoid walking 4 amos prior to washing. That's approximately 192 centimeters. Okay, this is according to the Avram Chaim Noah's Shir, 6 feet and 4 inches. Just under 2 meters. Okay, just under 2 meters, 6 feet 4 inches. That's the amount of space you are allowed to walk according to the Zohar, not more than that. I believe I already read to you 2 weeks ago the wording of the Zohar, right? What the Zohar writes about this, if a person is not careful. Did we read it?
Yeah.
Right, that the impure spirit resides in one's hands prior to the washing. One who does so is liable for death. As through residing this impurity in his hands, he has desecrated God's holiness which resides in him. Right, that's the wording that we said. Bottom line is that we are stringent like the Zohar, and we do not walk 4 amos before washing hands. Now, there are people who are lenient there are people who are lenient and they're not careful to wash next to their bed. They walk around and then they wash. Is there any basis for this? So, while nobody should rely on this, especially in matters of Kabbalah, leave the Kabbalists to the side. Don't look for the Poskim to give you direction in Kabbalistic matters. The same way, you don't look for the Kabbalists to give direction in halachic matters. Everyone is has their field, and so don't go to a mechanic for medical advice. So same thing over here. If when the Poskim say, well, it's not such a big deal, it's not their field. The Kabbalists understand what's going on here. This is a spiritual matter, and they're telling you this is something very severe. In any event, even though we tell everybody that they should be stringent, and definitely by Chassidim, without question, Chassidim are extremely careful in this Zoharic restriction. But nonetheless, amongst non-Chassidim, you have people who are lenient. Now, do they have anything to rely upon? The answer is some do and some don't. Those who walk around freely around the whole house and then wash hands in the kitchen have nothing to rely upon whatsoever, unless they completely negate the Zohar and they're part of the Dardurim groups, which were put in Cherem over 120 years ago. But if they're not part of that group and they do believe in the Kedusha of the Zohar, which they have to as a religious Jew, then there's no room for that leniency. What there is room for is the El Yerabba, who was one of the Ashkenazi Poskim, writes that he writes the following, the Shulchan Yaakov writes the following, that an entire room is considered 4 amos. And there is halachic basis for that in other places. So if you walk around your room, even though it's more than 4 amos, and wash in your room, so with that, there's something to rely upon. Meaning you can say that's still following the Zoharic restriction because we consider a whole room as if it's 4 amos. But even so, we do not rely on this. We rely on, when it says don't walk 4 amos, it means don't walk 4 amos. Don't make any acrobatic explanations of what that means. It means don't walk 4 amos. But just saying, people who aren't so careful and in the same room, they walk to the sink. Okay, there is what to rely upon. Now, those who completely ignore this.
Even among the Kabbalists there would be, or no? Even among the Kabbalists there would be what to rely on, or it's a post-game reliance?
So it's, bottom line is that this is brought in the Poskim, not in the Kabbalists. It's brought in the Poskim, Shulchan Yaakov. But the one matter of Kabbalah that some want to rely on is the following, and that is that there's a tradition from the Vilna Gaon that after Count Pototsky was burnt, Avram Lager, Count Pototsky, he was a count that became a Jew, converted to Judaism, and in the end, when he was discovered, was burnt at the stake, al Kiddush Hashem. So the Gra said that after he died al Kiddush Hashem, it destroyed the klipos of Bas Melech. Bas Melech was assassinated. So the problem is that First of all, can we rely on the Gra saying this? And B, did the Gra even say this? So he didn't say this in any of his works. And his own descendants, such as Moshe Sternbach, says, I've never heard of this in my family tradition, and I'm a son after son from the Gra. And he completely throws us out, and he was no chassid, this Moshe Sternbach. So bottom line is that their own family completely pushes away this theory, and therefore, bottom line, it's really not such a big deal. Just wash next to your bed. How big of a deal can it really be? How big of an issue can it be? They have to come up with all these leniencies and excuses. Let's save the arguments for more serious halachas that have some real lusts. Not something like this. Am I washing next to my bed and not next to my bed? Especially with the words of desire. So that's the bottom line. Everybody should take this to heart and wash next to their beds as much as possible. Now, furthermore, there is a chumrah. There's an added chumrah that Chassidim keep in addition to the Zohar. Meaning, according to the Zohar, you can walk 4 amos. Chassidim have a custom, it's recorded in the Sefer Mishmer Shalom of Kedinov and other Svarim, based on a teaching of Rav Zusha of Anipoida, not to even put the feet on the ground prior to washing hands. So we don't even put the feet on the ground. Okay? This is a Chassidish custom. All those who grew up in Chassidish homes, this is from day one. This is what they were trained, they were taught, they were educated in all Chassidish homes, not just the Rabbis. All Chassidish homes follow this. We don't even put our feet on the ground. Obviously, if you need to, it's mutter, because the Isser, according to desire, is only to walk more than 4 amos, not to walk a little bit more. But nonetheless, we are lichatchila careful.
So how to talk about acrobatics? So what do you think? You like bend over?
Yeah, so you have, let's say this is the bed, and I have the naked wasser here, so I just move it. Yeah, it's quite simple.
And you can't. I put my feet on top of my slippers.
That's what I do also.
And then I go.
Yeah. Because that was wise.
For us,
He gets older, it's not easy.
these guys may want to hear this. I don't.
Yeah.
For us, 3 or 4 a night. Well, let's say 3 average waking. For some of us who may do 2 or 3 awakenings a night, you can do more than one dip. I mean, you could leave. There's nothing wrong with like doing one and then you got only half the kafatra left
Like
on the
only
third.
one time?
Well, no. I mean, you use full, but
Right.
you every time it goes down, you're leaving water at the bottom.
Right.
It's going to sit there. Is there any problem with water sitting there? Or
Okay,
tuma
so we'll
water?
discuss that soon. We'll discuss that
Yeah,
soon.
it's a problem. Guys wake up more than once,
Right.
and some women.
I agree with you. It's not so good to wake up in the middle of the night. Right.
It happens.
Right.
It doesn't happen to most of
That's
us.
to do with water. We'll discuss that later.
So if your feet come down right into slippers, is that considered still touching the ground, or?
Right. So in the source, it doesn't discuss that case, but I would say it is. I would say it is.
It is.
I would say it's better. The best thing is, the most Mahadran way of doing it is just, as I said, go to the side, move your body to the area of the Negelwasser and wash without putting your feet up on the ground. The idea is rooting. I know in karate, okay, when I learned in Torah Dojo back in the day in Miami, it was, which karate was it? I don't remember anymore, but it was a karate that dealt with energy. And we used to do ground rooting. And what would we do is that we would stand on the ground, we would contemplate locking ourselves with the energy of the earth, and people couldn't push us, couldn't move us. It was unbelievable. We did some really cool things with these weird energy tricks, energy magic. And so that was one of the things we did. And this is really what he says there in the Torah, that when a person touches the ground, he's connecting with the earth. The earth has klippos, and the question is, does a slipper get in the way? So I'm not sure. You have to ask the Torah Dojo's karate masters if you can ground with slippers. They say yes. Okay, in any event, so where were we? What did I want to say? There was a story that happened by the Rebbe as follows. I was told this story by the Bais himself, and that is as follows. An individual who was in yeshiva in 1961. He was learning in 770 in the yeshiva. It wasn't 770 in the yeshiva, but whatever. He was learning by the Rebbe. And he wasn't accustomed to wash with negavas next to his bed. He would just walk to the bathroom and wash. And a friend of his was forbidden with him, which is the person who told me the story. He's today the Rabbi Beitar of Hashalom Mutam. He told him, when he found out, he said, what are you doing? Why don't you sit and wash next to the bed? What are you doing? How can you be taking to him washing like a guy? What are you doing? gun to wash it. Oh, okay. A from gun, you know. What are you doing? And he said, no, it spills, you know, I don't like it. I put my foot in the water. He gave all the 9-yard excuses that we all heard. Okay. He didn't convince him. Came that Shabbos is Fabregan, and I actually looked up the Fabregan that he mentioned, and it was boom, exactly what he said. The Rebbe spoke in that Fabregan. It was like in the middle of nowhere. The Rebbe suddenly started speaking about Nagelwasser and about washing next to the bed. And then he was standing next to this friend. They were standing next to each other by the Fabregan. And the Rebbe looks at them. And the Rebbe starts telling them. And there are people who don't wash next to the bed, and they give all these excuses. You can read it in the Sikh. And he starts counting down the excuses.
So
He puts his foot in the water's going to spill.
So it's which year?
It's Chafal.
Chafalef, which
I have it
Shabbat?
written here.
I like to see.
Yeah, it was 1962. So it's Chav Bais, and it's in Shabbos Mavarchim Chodesh Shvat. It's printed in Teres Menachem, volume 32, page 362.
It's 362.
Yeah.
If others do not have, is there any steps to try to take to prevent walking restrictions?
Right, we're going to get to that. Great question. Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of great questions. They're all going to be covered. God willing.
The question that I have is, you put the nickel vasser underneath your bed, that becomes a problem.
Yeah, that will also be covered.
But that,
Covering the neighbor lots is also could be a problem. We're gonna touch upon all this, each in their area. Okay, let's continue. Regarding 4 Amos, what are the questions that we have here? Okay, and if one wakes up in the middle of the night and plans to return to bed, do you have to wash your hands in between? So we touched upon this when 2 weeks ago we were discussing the itching question, and the answer is exactly the same. Just like if you have an itch in your ear, can you itch your ear in the middle of the night before washing? We said ideally you should not. You should wash, and also even if you wake up a few times to use the bathroom, you should wash each time because you have time on your hands, unless it's already past the Leis HaShachar, in which case, meaning you went to sleep again after Leis HaShachar, then you don't have to wash next to your bed anymore because you already did. But if you're still in the middle of the night for Leis HaShachar, then you would have to wash again. But nonetheless, we said that there is a pasuk who's leaning that says that the Tumah only comes once the morning arrives, meaning once the lights arrives. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and go back to bed, you don't have to wash right away. Banu said in a time of need you can rely on this, especially for children who suck their thumbs. We said that can be something to rely upon. But bottom line is that the Chatchila, everybody should wash hands, even if they wake up a few times. So as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, you can, if this happens often, just part of your Nagelwasser preparing should include a bottle of water to refill it. So you have it right there. Or a big Haley, or
and the water sitting at the bottom is okay.
instead of having the water in the cup and spilling into the basin, have the water in the basin and spill it into the cup.
The water that's sitting there that you already used in your 1 or 2 awakenings, that's going to sit there now half the night.
Right,
Okay?
so again, I
Covered
heard
that.
that question you asked before, so
Okay.
you asked it again, so I'll answer it this time. Otherwise, I said it the 3rd time. So the answer to that is like this. Bottom line is that l'chatchila, as we're going to learn later on in chapter 4, when we're discussing what to do with the water after you wash, you're not supposed to let this water sit around. It's horrible klipa water. It's, people used to save it for ganavim, used to break into their houses so they can drink it when they're thirsty. People would do kishuk with it. It's crazy stuff. And so therefore, you're really supposed to get rid of it right away. But I understand that to get up and get rid of it, so there's a way to circumvent that we will learn very soon. So hold on. We're going to learn how to circumvent this.
You're going to keep me here the whole shoot? Okay.
I go to the washroom. I have, right side of the washroom, we have the nickel vasser sink. I wash there. And then I go back to bed. I don't see what the problem is.
Wait, say it again. What do you
Wash
do?
before going to the bathroom.
I have to wash before going to the bathroom because I'm walking before I'm.
No, yeah, because you're going to
Yeah.
touch your.
Yeah.
The whole idea is you
Always.
can't walk 4 hours
You also
before
can't touch
washing
your
your hands.
orifices, right? There's 2 issues.
Yeah.
Walking 4 amos is a Zoharic issue. Touching orifices is a Talmudic issue. It's agreed upon by everybody.
They're all a no-no.
You have to wash
Wow.
before.
There's a long list of no-nos. Some of them
Okay,
are Zohar, some of
slowly.
them-
We're learning slowly, one step
And
at
you
a
don't
time.
have to wash after.
What does a person do if he's sleeping on a bunk bed? Someone on a bunk bed, he definitely can't keep the Reb Zusha
He's on the top.
tradition.
That's a good question.
Yeah, if he's on the bottom, it's not a problem. But how does he keep the Reb Zusha tradition? you know.
He needs an attachment on the side with a tray, and then he puts his bowl on top of the
Hanging
tray.
nail loss.
So that's a little tough. But bottom line, Rabbi Zusha's tradition you won't be able to keep, but the Zohar tradition you can still keep. You can just descend the bunk bed, the ladder, and wash next to the bed. He didn't walk for Amos, so that's not such an issue. Okay, we did that.
Looks is gonna drink the water in the middle of the night anyway.
Oh, no, I'm just thinking, I'm sitting next to my wife, I'm going to walk, turn on the light, or have something there, I'm going to have to work this out.
All right, try to brainstorm.
I don't drink after 8.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter, I still go to work.
Still, you have to work.
I thought I'd go to work at least twice, it used to be every hour.
If you have the Negavasa next to your side of the bed and a lamp on over there,
Yeah, but have
Need
a
a lamp? Need a
yeah,
lamp?
you turn it on. If you do, I don't need a lamp to see, but if you do, then that's what you do. What should one do if you don't have water within your 4 hours? So what do you do? So you have a few options. Number one, ask someone to bring it to you. Simple.
Someone, a dedicated
If you
wife.
don't have that person who can bring it to you, such as your wife's still sleeping, then what do? Then, so we have two options in the Paiskim. Some Paiskim say it's better to run. Run with the tumah. The less you stay with the tumah, the better. So run with the tumah, run to the next Nagelvasser post, and quickly wash your hands. Even the Zayar here agrees you're not supposed to stay stationary in your bed all day. You're living to get the jobs done. You're living to progress in life. You can't just sit there all day just because you don't have Nagelvasser water next to you. So even the Zayar in this case is going to say, get off your bed and go wash. The question is, how should it be done in the best way? So one opinion says that you should run to the water. This is the Mishnah Berurah's opinion. However, the other opinion, which is the opinion of the more Kabbalistic Paiskim, like the Ben Ish Chai, the Chidah, and many others, and this is the majority approach, is that you should not run and you should rather walk and stop every 4 steps, just like we rule by carrying in a place without an area. Over there's also these two different options, by the way. Sometimes we say run, sometimes we say walk less than 4 hours. The problem is that they say better to walk less than 4 hours, meaning less than 4 hours, stop, you rest, and then you start again, as then it's not considered that you've actually walked 4 hours with the tumah. So practically that's what you should do.
But Chatchila on any given night of the, or day of the week, night of the week,
Prepare it.
you don't want to do that.
Correct.
Right, you're not supposed
Obviously,
to do that.
you prepare next to your bed. But if you didn't, I'm saying it didn't happen.
Okay.
Okay, sometimes, as we're going to learn soon, you fell asleep on your couch.
Mm.
You took a nap, you were going to, one of the best things to do if you're having amnesia issues is to take a chitas, a Rambam, lie down on your couch at 11 o'clock at night. Believe me, the Yetzer Hara will have you asleep in 5 minutes.
Insomnia, insomnia.
Oh, right, insomnia, sorry. Yeah, so amnesia means I was saying the wrong word.
Right, that's cute.
So even if you have a sefer, holy sefer in your hand, the two mice have the chutzpah to come to the body.
Oh.
Yeah, this is a tradition already of generations, that if a person's having trouble falling asleep, it means the Yetzer Hara is trying to bother him so he doesn't get up tomorrow to learn. So what should you do? Start learning now in bed. The Yetzer Hara will leave you alone, you go to sleep. It's a tradition, an old tradition. Anyway, so that's what you do in the case that you don't have water. Now, what do you do if you're sleeping on a bus or a car?
You have to have water with you.
So I've seen people on planes do and even buses do all these different tricks, and I've never seen them come out very successful. One guy poured water in a bag, the whole bag spilled, he got all this tumah everywhere. Another time on the plane, I'll never forget this. I'm on a plane, I think it was an El Al flight, actually. I don't want to badmouth El Al for no reason, so I don't know for sure. But it was definitely, I think she was Israeli, so I'm assuming it was an El Al. Basically, a friend of mine, he was machmer, so he prepared, water under his seat, and he washed. He washed after, he woke up from whatever. And when the stewardess saw this, she went ballistic on him. What are you doing, wasting water on the plane? We have so little water. This woman went absolutely meshuggah. She went nuts, made a scene in front of the whole plane. I felt so bad. He embarrassed him in front of everybody. Not all stewardesses have their monocles straight, especially if they're flying so often. So this one definitely didn't. So bottom line is that what's a person's obligation? So in this situation, I say better be smart than be right. And I don't think there's, you don't have to push yourself that far. As I said, washing in a bag, taking chances spilling, preparing under your thing. You have a few choices. Some, just make sure not to sleep for a half hour. Others say, there's no choice. What can I do? I'm honest. So what do? You fall asleep, and you walk less than 4 hours at a time. You're definitely not going to do the Mishnah Berurah's option of running. You're going to run down the aisle.
Why not? I can see a chassid.
So you walk less than 4 hours at a time. You
What
walk,
about-
walk, stop,
what
until
about
you
the-
make it to the bathroom, and then you wash.
What about having a bottle of water and put, just a little bit of water in each hand before standing and going to the bathroom?
A little
Washing
bit.
the bathroom.
Gotta cover it.
You're asking
What
versus
about
washing
you
the bathroom?
sitting? You have a bottle prepared for
Right. Where do you want to
just
wash?
wash a little bit, each hand.
Right. Yeah, so it's
The
true,
tips
even
of the
though,
end.
very good, even though washing 3 times inconsecutively is what's necessary to completely banish Bas Melech off your fingers, every washing gets a little bit done. So you're right, washing a little bit, not taking a chance that someone's going to scream at you, what are you doing? Then yes, but it is beneficial.
What about taking like a paper towel, making it wet, and then using the paper?
Yeah.
Right, it's okay. This doesn't count in place of washing, but if you want to do that till you get to the next stop, then it's definitely better than nothing. I agree with you, yes. It's definitely better than nothing. But in such a case, as I said before, you get up, you walk less than 4 hours at a time, get to the bathroom and wash.
But many people doing that, that's the problem.
Not many people doing that?
Now, many people in planes, swim people, they run to the bathroom.
But we just said not to run. We're
I
not doing
mean,
it
run,
right.
busy.
Okay.
One
Is
other
each
option.
time of sleep the same as the other, or is the first in the morning the more
Okay,
serious
right.
problem?
So this is only throughout the nighttime. So actually, sometimes in flights, you don't have a lot of nighttime. It depends how you're flying.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a lot of nighttime, and sometimes you have very little nighttime. And again, nighttime is after Tzeis HaKichavim until Alois HaShachar. So you may not even know. That's why it's good to get a window seat. You can always look, am I?
So I'm saying, so if you have a daytime flight
Right.
and you fall asleep, then there is not
So
the
restrictions,
tumah.
all these restrictions. There is tuma, but it's let's call it the Bas Melech's first cousin once removed.
Right.
It's not her herself. It's a less severe tuma. So we don't have all these restrictions. These restrictions don't apply by that time.
Oh, so they nap on the couch during the day.
So it's specifically by nighttime. Yes, absolutely. These restrictions are specifically by nighttime, by night sleeping.
You could order a seat, because we can't pick our seats most often. Almost every time you pick your seat, you could say, instead of wanting a window aisle, you want a bathroom seat.
Oh, right.
Right there,
Okay.
bathroom.
Yeah,
It could be no 197
400.
centimeters.
if you have a lot of people walking by, you
The new LL room planes that they'll be doing soon enough, they have.
I wonder what they do in first
holes.
class, if they have little Nagelwassers
Sure.
in the first class that they offer the passenger. I guess one of us has to fly in order to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our next and last regulation, and that is regarding speaking words of Torah. According to everybody, someone who has dirtied his hands, like touched usually covered parts of the body, such as he scratched his stomach or his belly button in the middle of the night, then he has to wash his hands, according to everybody, before he learns Torah, or at least clean them before he learns Torah. So a person who slept without clothing, everyone agrees, Talmud and Zohar, that you can't study Torah or say blessings or anything of the sort. However, when you sleep with pajamas and the like, then that's when the Talmud says you're good, nothing wrong. But the Zohar says, no, you're not allowed to learn and daven with the tumah of Bas Melech on your hands, and that's practically how we rule. We are stringent to not say any words of Torah, to not say a blessing, to not say Hashem's name prior to washing hands in the morning.
That's okay. So Modani is okay, obviously.
Maidani, that's exactly
Fine.
why it's okay, because it doesn't have Hashem's name. It's just a statement
Right.
that's thanking God, but we're not saying God.
I know.
And also in English, you shouldn't say God. Meaning, don't say, let's say you like saying Maidani in English, don't say thank you, God.
Right.
Say thank you, Hashem. Okay? Thinking words of Torah, however, you're allowed to think words of Torah, so there is no prohibition in thinking words of Torah. The Isser is only in actually verbalizing. This is written in both Siddur, Basra, and Kama of the Alter Rebbe. There's no Isser in thinking words of Torah prior to washing hands, whether you slept with clothing or didn't sleep with clothing. The Isser of speaking Torah when you have dirty hands is only to speak, not to think.
Even before the brachos,
The Isser of thinking, of learning Torah prior to Birchas Torah is only in saying, not in thinking. You're allowed to think Torah. Thinking Torah, you don't fulfill a mitzvah of Talmud Torah. The mitzvah of Talmud Torah is only fulfilled if you actually speak them. And that's why I notice in my shir, and people like to talk a lot because they want to get the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. So they ask a lot of questions. Right? But the truth is, the Alter rules that if you hear someone else speak, you fulfill the mitzvah because Shemea Ka'oina. And only if I'm a recording, that's when in truth it's a problem. If you listen to my recording, or if people listening online, that's the reason of necessity why people actually have to show up physically to a shir and not just to stay online. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of a technical issue if someone lives in a different country. But if, someone lives in the neighborhood, I'll just listen online. Why not? The problem is that they don't fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah when they do that. They fulfill the mitzvah of they're doing a good thing, they're learning Torah in their mind, they're hearing good things, hopefully, but they're not fulfilling the halachic mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which will be fulfilled if you're verbalizing or you hear a Jew verbalizing. When you're hearing it from a computer, you're hearing Lenovo or Google or whoever it is verbalizing, and Google's not Jewish. They're not chayav in mitzvahs, the computer.
So you could hear a woman singing through a computer
No, that's something else. That's the reason that's usher is because of her, because it causes bad thoughts. So that makes no difference if you know it's her voice or if it's from the computer voice. It's what's going on in the head that's the problem.
So that if there is a Rav Mitzvah that gives shiurim live, and you can go and hear the shiurim, but this Rav also records and puts it online, and people say, I don't have to go there because I'll just listen to it later. They have not fulfilled the mitzvah of Talmud Torah.
not fully.
So first of all, I think I know who you're talking about. I have a feeling.
No,
I do. That's
no,
what we
I'm
do.
not you. I'm not talking about Lashon.
I'm joking, because that's what we do here. We put it online. The answer is to your question is that, again, there's the halachic mitzvah of Talmud Torah requires verbalization. And the only way to get out of verbalization is if you are physically present, hearing the physical voice of the Maggid Shir, like you're doing right now. So then it's as if you're saying it. Whatever I'm saying is as if you're saying it, so you fulfill the mitzvah. However, the concept of Shemea Ka'oina, that when you hear, it's considered as if you're saying, is only when you hear from the actual person. If you hear it through a computer or through any other mechanical device, and even if it's live, you're still not hearing from him. It's not considered. And so that's why I'm not trying to discourage anybody from
Right.
listening.
And obviously, it's better to
We put it
learn
up
that
online.
way than not to
Exactly.
learn at
Of course.
all.
Of course, we're just saying, that's meant for people who can't make it to the shir, but don't use that method and not show up to the shir.
So if you have a large, somebody's giving a share in a large hall, and you have not everybody can get into the hall.
Right.
So they're listening to it off of the monitor or something.
Right.
They're not
You'll be on time.
They're doing a very good thing, and they're fulfilling a mitzvah, but not the mitzvah of Talmud Torah.
So that's according to the Shulchan Aruch, or?
It's going to everybody, yeah. Recently, many Sephardi Rabbanim have come out with this as well. They mention this all the time.
Wow.
But this is everyone agrees to this. This is a recorded fact. Okay, we're going to continue.
Online school. Online school.
So we're okay. Speaking words of Torah, we finished that part. We spoke about thinking. Let's see what related questions we have. Okay, here's a question. May one learn Torah, recite blessings in face of the tummy water in front of them? So let's say you already washed. You're good. You're pure. But the water is right there. The water's still there. Are you allowed to learn Torah, recite a bracha prior to doing so? This question is particularly relevant in a case that two people are relying on this basin. So the other person washed, and then we'll put it out. Then we'll throw it out. Why should I throw it out already now? Or I'm just lazy. I want to throw it out later. I want to right now read, do my daily chumash. I don't know, do brachas right there. So the answer is like this: we don't find in the Shulchan Aruch any isser of learning Torah or davening or anything of the sort in face of the tummy water. Only with tummy hands. Once your hands are good, you're good. Nonetheless, there are some poskim who rule that it is forbidden to do so. As what have you done? You've transferred the tummy You've transferred Bas Melech from your hands to the water. So she's still around. So what difference does it make? She's still present while you're going to be learning Torah in her presence. So a lot of places can bring that way. There's a big machlekes regarding the Chida's opinion. In one place, the Chida backed this stringency. In another place, he negated it. So there's a debate regarding the Chida, what his position is. Bottom line is like this, is that many people are machmir, like this approach, and therefore they're particular to throw out the washing water prior to davening or learning. However, those who are lenient have upon whom to rely, and especially if, let's say, it's someone else's washing water and they're being stubborn and they don't want to spill it out. So I don't have to worry about that. I can go ahead and learn and daven and ignore them. But there's a few ways to circumvent the issue, and that answers now your question you asked before. I'm waking up every time. What do I do? So there's a few ways. Number one, you can cover the water. If you cover the water, then you're allowed to learn and daven in its presence. So you can put something on top of it.
And leave it for a time, regardless whether you're going to daven or learn. You can leave it for a time. That was the question to begin with. Can you leave it?
So you can cover it. That's one option, and then you can daven and learn in front of it, according to everybody. Another option is to spill a revius of water into it, which basically kills the tumah. So let's say a revius of water, 86 milliliters of water. So I washed, and I make sure to leave the revius in the cup, and then I pour the revius into the water. It's not a lot of revius. It's just 86 milliliters. It's a tiny amount. So you pour that then into the rest. Bam. Bas Melech has vanished.
Don't worry about spilling it or anything. Don't worry about it. No tumah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'm not telling you to drink the water. Get rid of the water, but just use this to.
But don't worry about
leaving it and learn.
Leave it. Leave it for a while.
That's just for that. This is not to turn it into drinking water. I wouldn't wish that on our best enemies. Anyways.
The third, you can leave the room, right?
What's that?
You can leave the room.
Well, once you've washed, of course you can leave the room.
So then it's not destroyed. You can
The door has to be closed.
Then you're not in the same room with them.
Oh, you're saying another option to begin with? Yeah, of course, you can always leave the room and then daven. Yeah, that's also true.
Close the door.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what do you do if you heard Kaddish or Kedusha? Now, Kedusha is a little weird because this must mean that you were davening in an area, that you sleep in an area right next to a shul and you hear the morning minyan, which may happen to some people. Yeah. Oh, yeah?
The people there.
Okay, they wake up straight to Kedusha. And so if you woke up, if you from the night sleeping, what do? You hear Kaddish Kedusha. Do you answer before you wash? So the place can write, don't answer. Think the words in your mind. Just think them. Don't answer anything. So too, what happens if, and this has happened to me this year, what happens if you woke up from very strong lightning or thunder, very strong thunder and lightning? You say bracha. We have tummy hands. Now, if you say the bracha before washing and you just said the bracha with tummy hands, you're not allowed to according to the Zohar. It's a severe prohibition. If you wait till you wash, the time has passed. You have to do it teich they did. We have 2 to 3 seconds. So here we're stuck. Here too, the place can say, think the blessing. Don't say it. Just think it and go back to sleep. May a person say the word Shalom or Shabbos or Shalom Aleichem. They can perform say Shalom or say Shabbos before washing hands. So some places can say it's not allowed to be said, as Shalom is considered one of the names of God, and we find in halacha that a discussion is a person allowed to erase the name Shalom. Is a person that's Lamaisa we're machmir l'chatchila not to write the whole name because of that. In order to avoid the dispute, we try never to write Shin Lamed Vav Mem. We just write Shin Lamed Vav with the apostrophe or whatever. But so we see it has kedusha. Likewise, it says you're not allowed to say the word Shalom in a bathroom. And there's even a machlekes if you can call someone, if you can call someone who's named Shalom inside a bathroom or a mikvah. So if I have a friend named Shalom, or if I have a son named Shalom, he's taking a shower, say Shalom. So when you name your child Shalom, it's a name of machlekes. Peace can become a name of machlekes because now your machlekes, you let her call him in the bathroom. Can you say his name in the bathroom? So Lamaisa we're lenient. Lamaisa regarding the name of a person whose name is Shalom, you can be lenient. You can call him.
What about the word Shabbos? You mentioned it.
I'll touch the Shabbos in a second. First, let's get Shalom out of the way. But if it's not the name of the person, just the word shalom, like Shabbat Shalom, it's a problem, you can't say it. That's why I've mentioned in the past that also there was a thing going on in New York where people would, kids would chalk, would write all over the sidewalks, Shabbat Shalom, chalk, a few hours before Shabbos, and everyone would see it. It was so beautiful. It was very goodly intended, but it's a problem according to halacha because people can't step on that shalom, because if they do, it causes erasing, and it's the belittlement of it, it's a problem. The erasing isn't our issue, it's the belittlement. So it's better not to write Shabbat Shalom, just write good Shabbos, or write something of the sort. Now regarding Shabbos as well, the Zohar says that Shabbos is also one of the names of God. And that's why some say that Ashkenazim purposely changed the word from Shabbat to Shabbos. Shabbos is not the original Hebrew term. Tell a Sephardi, Shabbos. He doesn't know what you're talking about. Maybe today, because we're all integrated. But go to Jerba. Go to any place where there's still, 100% secluded Sephardi. I don't know what you're talking about. Say, what are you doing for Shabbos? For what? Shabbat. Shabbat. That's the word in the Torah. Shabbat. It's not Shabbos. So some say we created the word Shabbos in order to avoid all these issues. So you can tell someone get Shabbos in the bathroom because they get Shabbos in the mikvah.
Is that true?
That seems a stretch.
Seems a stretch?
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be a reason why they stretch the word.
It's just the Ashkenazi accent.
It's the accent.
Isn't it?
That the
Interchangeable soft tough versus hard tough, isn't that a standard choice?
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's also the punctuation.
Shabbat. Yeah.
Once someone once asked a Sephardi Rav, I heard this on the radio, he asked him if he's allowed to, the question was, can he be Yaitse, Kriyas HaTorah from a Chassidish reader? Now, Ashkenazim, as bad as the Sephardim may think we are, when it comes to comparing us to Polish Chassidim, we're pretty good. The Polish Chassidim, they mamish reread the words, like the words are written in a very different way. So he was asking, can I be Yaitse? And the Sephardi Rav told him he should not be Yaitse. So they said, why? But all the difference is listen, do you want to rule over your wife, or do you want your wife to rule over you? So, it was a question, rhetorical question. I didn't expect him to answer. And he said, it says in the Torah, "Hu yimshel bach," Bereshis, and he, the man, will rule over the wife. Well, what do the Chassidim read? They read, "V'hi yimshel bach," and she will rule over him. V'hi yimshel bach. So he says, that's what you want to be Yaitse from?
But the verb is different.
It was a joke, but
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay. Good. We covered everything here. We're now going to move on to our next halacha. How much time do we have? What time do we start? We have at least another 10 minutes. Okay. Okay. Do Goyim have the Bas Melech? We've already explained this. Goyim do not have Tumah, and therefore they don't have to be careful in none of these things. So if you have a Gentile live-in, you don't have to prepare an egel vaser, you don't have to treat her all these laws, you don't have to tell her, wash your hands before you prepare food. None of this is a problem. She doesn't get, Bas Melech is not a guest in her body. Okay, regarding children, we touched upon this already, and we explained as follows, that children who are above the age of chinuch are to be educated to wash hands, and they should not touch food, and they should be educated regarding all the restrictions. Below the age of chinuch, minadin is not a problem, because we said they don't have enough kedusha for klipa to be looking for anything by them. Excuse me. However, bottom line is the Alter Rebbe writes in Dura Basra, one who is careful to wash their hands from the day of the bris and onwards is doing an act of holiness. And bottom line, the earlier you begin, the more it's considered as a hiddur and as a matter of holiness for the child's upbringing, as the Ben Ish Chai writes, and other Mekubalim, the Chesed Ba'alafim, they write that washing the hands of one's children, even of nursing age, is a segula, that they grow up with purity and holiness. The Rebbe Rashab wrote in his will that one should be careful to begin washing his child's hands when the child is no longer in diapers. That's usually between age 2 and 3. Hopefully, that's what he wrote, that a person should begin. But again, from the Alter Shulchan Aruch, he writes that the ultimate hiddur is from the bris milah and onwards, to be careful to wash hands. At the very least, Chabad customs be careful from age 3. So if someone who's not careful before, in the very least from age 3, we are careful to wash.
We get our 3.5-year-olds or 3-year-olds to not take a step off their bed.
Oh, well, I didn't say to be stringent about all the restrictions, but I said, they should for sure make sure they wash hands, and for sure when they reach the age of chinuch, they have to make sure not to touch any food and all these things. But before you train them, listen, when you train them young, they get used to it. When they're used to not being careful in this, that's why the custom is once they have a little bit of das, and they want to do it. They get excited. You buy them, special Nagelwasser kit. They're all excited to use it. So why not? When we're mechanech them at a young age, it sticks with them until they're older. Okay, this we touched upon. Do the above restrictions apply if one accidentally fell asleep or took a nap in the beginning of the night? So I mentioned this earlier. People make a mistake and think, it only applies when I need to wash hands, when I go to sleep for the night. But if I just fell asleep on the Rambam, for a half hour, whatever it is, on the couch, then I don't have to wash hands. It's not true. Bas Melech doesn't work with those halachas. Bas Melech comes to visit anyone who's willing to send their neshama upstairs. What does it matter if they mean to do it for a long time, for a short time, because it's their main sleep, not their main sleep. All those discussions of Bas Melech is not interested in it. She sees you sleeping, she's coming. And therefore, the halach is that a person who sleeps 60 breaths at night, even unintentionally, they fell asleep because they were tired, right? You were in a shear at nighttime and Mamish knocked you out, as they say. So that's it. You gotta wash hands. You have Bas Melech on your hands. If you're able to, wash next to where you're sleeping. If you can't, then walk less than 4 amas. Walk to the Nagelwasser and wash, as we explained. Now, the minimum is 60 breaths. And how much is 60 breaths? If you slept less than 60 breaths, Bas Melech hasn't been invited yet. Bas Melech only comes once a person has slept for 60 breaths. So, now, nobody can stay up to watch if they've slept for 60 breaths.
How long is it?
So that's our question. How long is it? So, a machlekes. Some say a half hour. Some say it's 3 minutes. And some say longer. Bottom line is like this. For sure, if a person slept for a half hour, they should be machmir with everything, all the restrictions. But even if a person slept for 3 minutes, it's proper for them to already wash because there are opinions who say that's about enough. But let's just say for certain by a half hour, one is not to be lenient at all. That's considered 60 minutes. Now, if we say 60 breaths is 3 minutes, then it ends up that David HaMelech, who wouldn't sleep for 60 breaths, never slept for more than 3 minutes at a time. So but if you say it's 30 minutes, it's a little more understandable.
There's not more than 30 minutes?
It's
not about an hour?
I think, it's broad.
I read
it's broad. It's broad, chapter 4, halacha 17. It's where it's mainly discussed. Let's see what I wrote. Some poskim rule is equivalent to 3 hours.
3 what?
3 hours.
60 breaths in 3 hours.
That's what some rule. It's 5 opinions. We'll get to it later on. There's 5 opinions on the bottom line. As I said, the halacha that we rule is a half hour. That's what we rule.
Half hour. Half hour. We rule half hour.
Yeah.
We rule half hour.
Yeah. Not just Chabad, the Poskim, that's the conclusion of the Poskim. The kids Shulchan Aruch, the Bais Shulchan, and others, they conclude a half hour. What does a person do if there is no water available? Meaning, not just no water available next to my bed, there is no water. There's no water. For example, there was Hafsakat Mayim. There was water, no water in the city they told it was sudden, 7 o'clock in the afternoon, no water. What do you do in such a situation? So, or you can say, finally I get to bum out in bed. The Zayar is forcing me. The Zayar says, I'm not allowed to learn Torah, I'm not allowed to sleep. So I'm just going to relax in bed and read a novel all day. Says the Alter Rebbe the following words: Heaven forfend that a person delay learning Torah until he is able to wash his hands 3 times. And rather in such a situation, you do the following. You wipe your hands in whatever you can. You avoid touching foods as much as you possibly can, or use a plastic bag or something so you don't get Bas Melech on your food. And you learn Torah and daven. He says it's greater of an isser to do bittul Torah than to learn Torah in impurity. So better to learn Torah in impurity than to do bittul Torah.
Oh.
Okay.
If a person has a cast on his hand and he's unable to wash, what does he do? So in such a case, you only wash the hand that's available, and it's considered that you've washed, and you can go ahead and say bracha on Tchilas Yadayim. It is not a problem.
And if you have something that you could take off, but not easily.
So the halacha there is, just like washing for bread, that if you won't take it off generally because of the pain,
Yeah.
it's painful to remove, then you don't have to remove it and you can leave it on. It's not a problem. We've concluded chapter 3, and next week we're going to start chapter 4.
Women
Okay,
are
very good.
chayiv. Women are chayiv in this whole thing too, right?
Absolutely. You
Okay.
think Bas Melech doesn't look at women?
Ben Melech, maybe.
Ben Melech, Bas Melech, yeah. No difference.